Welcome to the channel. This is a new title where Naruto leaves the world at birth. I really need your support. This is a subscription to my boosty, thank you in advance. Before watching, please like and subscribe to the channel. Enjoy watching. Chapter 1. Jiraiya. An almost invisible jerk and the blonde's fist crashes into his opponent's stomach. Jiraiya rubbed his eyes. No, it wasn't a hallucination. The blonde had apparently already had to fight many opponents. One by one, he incapacitated his opponents with one powerful blow. Their attacks had absolutely no effect on the guy. He easily dodged blows with weapons and blocked the rest. Teamwork did not help to cope with a superior enemy. He constantly found himself alone with the enemy shinobi, while his comrades remained behind. Jiraiya even began to figure out in his mind a plan for fighting this orange whirlwind. His fighting technique was not distinguished by beautiful movements. Simple and effective techniques, enhanced by chakra. But their speed and strength were amazing. The only remaining member of the squad tried to reach the guy in the stomach with a kunai, but he avoided the attack and sent the last shinobi flying with a sharp kick. Finally, Jiraiya was able to see him. The black cloak with orange flames dancing along its lower edge immediately caught the eye. Underneath is an orange tank top and simple black pants. No protection. It didn't look like shinobi attire, more like home clothes. Then why did he fight? The guy muttered something incoherent and turned around. For a second the Sannin was taken aback. Tousled, messy hair the color of ripe wheat, piercing blue eyes. Minato? He asked, stunned. The blonde frowned, but when he saw who was talking to him his face cleared up. However, the next moment, the expression on his face changed to confusion. It was a mistake, the unknown guy said slowly, without taking his eyes off the Sannin. I have to go. It seems that he himself was no less surprised at meeting Jiraiya, if he correctly interpreted the amazement reflected in the blonde's eyes. Wait, the toad hermit tried to grab the stranger by the sleeve, but he had already disappeared in the moving technique. What happened here now? And who was this guy? His resemblance to the fourth Hokage was undeniable, but still it was not Minato. Then who? Jiraiya used his sensor abilities, but the search yielded no results. This means that he either masterfully hides his chakra, or is already outside the search zone. Maybe this was originally an illusion. But the motionless bodies of the blonde's opponents spoke of the reality of what was happening. And they were the only ones who could answer his questions. Fortunately, the guy did not try to kill his pursuers, but Jiraiya doubted that most of the squad would return to work as shinobi. In an unknown way, the blonde damaged his chakra circulation system, and this was an even more serious obstacle to returning to duty than a couple of fractures. And if qualified medical assistance is not provided in the near future, they could put an end to their careers. He decided to wait until one of the guy's opponents, a shinobi of the hidden cloud, woke up. Given the remoteness of their current location, Jiraiya didn't have to worry about being caught red-handed, even if it wasn't him who did it. Finally, one of the shinobi groaned, coming to his senses. Sannin approached him and, strengthening his CI to maximum, began interrogating him. Why were you following him? He asked. But the answer to him was silence. Answer, Jiraiya ordered, or I am not responsible for the fate of your comrades. The shinobi looked at the hermit with undisguised contempt. You sent your mongrel and you think now you'll get off so easily. I'm not asking what your large detachment is doing in the disputed territory. At these words the shinobi turned slightly pale, but did not look away. Chasing a person who is not a Konoha ninja. But he's almost a clone of Namikaze. I repeat, not a Konoha ninja, the Sannin pressed with his authority, not allowing the hidden cloud ninja to come to his senses. After all, Konoha and Kumo don't need a new war now, do they? From the downcast look of the interrogated man, Jiraiya realized that he had won. He entered our secret facility, destroyed one of the developments, and disappeared. The shinobi cracked. Jiraiya twirled the kunai on his finger thoughtfully. It was unreasonable to let these people go, but to give a reason for a new war, let's do this. He turned to the shinobi who was looking at him warily, having made the final decision. The search for the mysterious copy of Minato turned out to be a failure. Most likely, he was no longer in the city, Jiraiya thought. If it were him, he would also leave him as soon as possible. The Sannin nodded his head in agreement to his thoughts. Perhaps it's time to leave this fruitless pursuit and return to your original mission. It was with this attitude that he jumped from the top of the building when he saw a shop selling ramen. Who knows, maybe on a full stomach he will come up with new ideas. The hermit's jaw reached the ground with a dull thud. The blonde was brazenly eating ramen right in front of him. Attack him before he notices him? Or try to talk peacefully? He did not show any aggressive actions towards the Sannin, but ignoring the potential danger was stupid, to say the least. I give up! The guy suddenly raised his hands in defeat, but continued to eat the noodles. Foiko, give me some food! Taken aback, Jiraiya did not immediately realize that he was not hiding his chakra at all. Annoyed by such a stupid mistake, he slowly walked up to the bench and sat down next to the ramen consuming. He couldn't find another word, blonde. Has anyone ever told you that you are very similar to one person? Well, looking up from the meal, the guy looked thoughtfully at the Sannin. I was often compared to my father. Jiraiya ordered himself a serving of miso ramen and continued to look at this mysterious young man. And he soon noticed that despite the incredible similarity with the fourth Hokage, there were also differences. The oval of the face was slightly different, the shape of the eyes was also different. But the most important thing is the thin symmetrical stripes of scars on the blonde's cheeks. However, the resemblance to the former student was still striking. By the way, my name is Jiraiya. A gallant suitor, a favorite of the ladies and simply an excellent shinobi of a village hidden in the foliage. He guessed that the guy already knew who he was, and the grunt of agreement only confirmed his judgment. And I. The guy's gaze darted around until he stopped at a bowl of ramen. Naruto. Just Naruto. It was clearly an improvisation, but half a glass of water ended up on the Sannin's clothes. Naruto? He asked again, clearing his throat. Naruto. The blonde confirmed with a slight smile. It's a strange name, said the hermit, as if hinting that he would not fall for such an obvious deception. Whatever it is. The guy shrugged and continued eating. Jiraiya suddenly wanted to kill the brat. He was definitely mocking him, although he couldn't understand exactly how. Judging by your skills, you are a shinobi. The Sannin tried to start a conversation again. But I don't see your protector. I don't have one. The guy smiled at some of his thoughts. Now I am an absolutely free person. Nunekin? Asked the hermit. What? No! Naruto was indignant at Jiraiya's assumption. Though these people from Kyumo will probably be looking for me. So, an absolutely clean biography. No connections to hidden villages, at least confirmed, other than the recent infiltration of a closed base. Appearance almost identical to the fourth Hokage and a great love for ramen. And what conclusion was Jiraiya supposed to draw based on this information alone? I need to go to the toilet. The blonde suddenly stood up. 10 minutes after Naruto left, Jiraiya became suspicious. After 20 minutes and a piece of paper with a score politely placed in front of the Sannin, which made his eyes pop out of his head, the hermit decided that he would unceremoniously kill this impudent man. Make him, Konoha's greatest spy, pay for someone else's bill. And for quite a large amount. But he won't forget this even the next time they meet. The Sannin had no doubt that they would meet again. He walked slowly, but he had the feeling that he was being pursued. The hermit did not feel any thirst for blood, but the premonition of trouble did not leave him. Show yourself, I know you're watching me, he said into the void. And his intuition was right. Naruto appeared behind him, cheerfully waving at him. What a meeting! The guy exclaimed, smiling joyfully at the hermit. I didn't expect it. You were following me, Jiraiya said simply. And why do I need this? The blonde tilted his head and looked at the Sannin with curiosity. That dazzling smile was already starting to irritate the Sannin. How can I know what's on your mind? The hermit could not restrain himself. And give me back the money for the ramen. What money? Naruto made a naive face. Don't pretend to be innocent. Jiraiya took several breaths and exhalations, and then said in a much calmer voice. I don't know how 50 portions of noodles fit into you, but you'll pay me for them. There's a little problem here. The guy pointed to the large backpack behind him. I'm broke. I spent everything on supplies. You'll work in kind, Jiraiya remarked gloomily. Oh. Naruto made frightened eyes and tried to cover his chest with his hands. So, do you prefer young and innocent boys like me? Crazy. The Sannin was indignant. I am the most natural person. Then what do you want from me? Naruto caught up with Jiraiya. It depends on what you can offer. The hermit threw out the bait. What can you do? HM? Let's see. Naruto wrinkled his forehead, and then started chattering at the speed of light. I have the most unbreakable head in the world. We have experience in preventing wars and global disasters. I can destroy ramen in unlimited quantities. I have high-level diplomacy. I know 748 ways to kill a person, but I don't use them. By the way, I can even make friends with Bijou. Oh, and my skills at driving people crazy are maxed out. What else? Oh, I can edit books. Of the entire flow of the blonde's chatter, Jiraiya found only the very end plausible. He was in no hurry to accept everything else that was said on faith. Editor, you say? The Sannin brought out his recently released work. Have you read this book? The guy frowned, but then his eyes shone, and without asking, he snatched the subject of discussion from the hermit's hands. Oh, no! The blonde exclaimed joyfully, clutching the book to himself like a jewel. Can? Take it now. Jiraiya waved his hand tiredly. However, instead of finding out new information about Naruto, they spent 2 hours discussing the intricacies of the plot of the Sannin's future masterpiece. The blonde turned out to be a pleasant and rather witty conversationalist, but he continued to hold back information about himself, not succumbing to any of Jiraiya's many provocations. However, there is still time, and he promised himself to crack this tough nut. At the next stop, Naruto took a scroll out of his backpack, and through simple manipulations a cup of still hot ramen appeared in front of him. What is this? Jiraiya looked in surprise at the high-class storage seal that was used to store food. It seems that it was high time for him to stop being surprised at the strangeness of this guy. Ramen, what else? Naruto, clearly having no idea about the scroll's value, ate right above it. Do you use sealing scrolls to store noodles? The hermit exclaimed in shock. His dissatisfaction was further intensified by the fact that every now and then fat drops of broth threatened to fall onto the work of the unknown master. Ramen, the blonde corrected him. And what from this? I can take a look. The Sannin really wanted to examine the seal that he had never come across before. I won't share. Naruto covered the precious plate with his food of the gods with his hand. Do you know who made this scroll? The hermit asked, studying the scroll. Naruto just shrugged, his mouth full of food. Very interesting job. A non-standard printing matrix, but everything works perfectly. The Sannin continued, not noticing the blonde's sudden attack of shyness. I would give a lot to meet this new Fuinjutsu master. Naruto hid his cheeks, flushed from praise, behind his plate, pretending to drink the broth. Uzumaki, he said after finishing his ramen. This is Uzumaki's work. Jiraiya examined the seal again. I think you're right. The Sannin finally agreed. However, using a work of art to store ramen, by the way, where are we going? Naruto suddenly asked. Where you are going, I have no idea. Personally, I'm looking for one person. The Sannin glanced at his frivolous companion. Did he seriously trust the man he met just 2 days ago? The guy said thoughtfully, throwing his hands behind his head. Then I'll go with you. Jiraiya sighed. That's what he thought. Chapter 2. Jiraiya Part 2. It was the 3rd day of their journey together. Jiraiya managed to get used to his new companion, who still never ceased to amaze him. When the conversation turned to the blonde's past, he instantly changed the topic. although he himself did not stop asking the Sannin about Konoha. But he was not interested in military secrets or classified data. Naruto purposefully asked questions about the history of the village that seemed well known to the hermit, or listened with interest to discussions about international politics, again without going into things that did not concern him. It began to seem to Jiraiya that the guy had spent all of the past 20 years in some wilderness. That's how far behind he was in his awareness. However, even these apparent friendly relations did not allow the Sannin to relax for a second. If Naruto noticed some tension hanging between them, he did not show his knowledge in any way, which suited the hermit just fine. The blonde turned out to be a hyperactive and restless person. When he couldn't find anything to do, jokes, pranks, and new troubles began. At times it even seemed to Jiraiya that the guy was taking revenge on him for some offense that he could not remember. But they definitely didn't know each other before, that's what the hermit could be sure of. Attempts to find out where Naruto got such an appearance also came up against a blank wall. To all questions regarding this, the guy answered that he inherited it from his parents and yes, they died. The guy, as Jiraiya understood, had no other living relatives either. At least he didn't mention them. What secrets did this incomprehensible, but the Sannin already liked blonde man, who looked like his former student, hide? Upon arrival at their next destination, they stopped at a small hotel. A festival was taking place in the city at that moment, and most of the rooms were occupied, and the price of the remaining ones increased significantly. Jiraiya even graciously rented one room for two, after Naruto's particularly pitiful look from the beaten puppy. The loud growl in the guy's stomach only added to the dramatic effect. And he, as soon as he entered the room, threw his bulky backpack onto the bed and instantly disappeared in an unknown direction. Jiraiya already knew that the blonde could hide from all radars if he wanted, and was not particularly worried about him. True, he still lacked information about all the guy's abilities. The hermit looked at Naruto's backpack with curiosity. Perhaps there was some kind of clue to his past hidden in it? Should I look or not? Jiraiya approached him and examined him carefully. Standard hiking backpack, dark green. At stops, the guy usually took out another scroll with ramen from it. The hermit still could not forgive him for such a waste of valuable resources. And apparently, spare clothes and a sleeping bag were stored in it. The blonde most likely carried valuables with him. And curiosity still won. The first thing Jiraiya found in his backpack was, naturally, instant ramen. Who would doubt that? Muttered the hermit. He, of course, also sometimes didn't mind trying this dish, but for Naruto it was some kind of unhealthy love. If he had been given free rein, he would have founded a religion of ramen worship. The Sannin had no doubt. The next item brought to light was another package of noodles. How much more does he have? Jiraiya asked someone unknown. Deciding to save time, he simply dumped the contents of his backpack onto the bed. Food, a sleeping bag, clothes, scrolls of ramen. Suddenly his gaze fell on a strangely familiar book. The pages were tattered, the cover was honest, and most surprisingly, this was his first book. And apparently its owner had reread it more than once. Naruto. This name was not accidental. And the guy clearly knew him. How did he not notice this before? Hundreds of thoughts raced through his head. Who was the blonde sent by and for what purpose? Is he really on his own? In search of new clues, Jiraiya once again turned over a bunch of things, but did not find anything that could interest him. While carefully returning the items to their original locations, he noticed an unusual lining at the bottom of the backpack. Having opened it, the hermit discovered an old hideout of Konoha, faded with time. The question, "Whose is it?" hung in the air by itself. However, if he asks Naruto, it is not a fact that he will answer him the truth. It would be safer to find out about this in Konoha. How to conduct tests. Having copied the number from the back of the bandage, Jiraiya returned everything to its place. There was nothing else to do in the room, and he decided to go down to the bar to once again think over the available information. It was this activity that his roommate caught him doing. Fortunately, he also had all the means to distract himself from painful thoughts. Oh, Jiraiya drawled meaningfully, hearing the familiar clink of bottles. Is this what I thought? I'm returning the debt. Naruto put the tray of alcohol on the table. But where did you get the money? The Sannin asked, looking at the seductively glittering bottles of sake. I sold a couple of things. The guy narrowed his eyes slyly. Well, shall we have a drink? I'm always for it. Besides, alcohol helped loosen the tongue quite well. As they say, what's on a sober person's mind is on a drunken person's tongue. Familiar practice. And Jiraiya considered his tolerance for alcohol, developed over years of hard work, to be more than good. But he greatly underestimated Naruto. He turned out to be practically impenetrable, and while the hermit already wanted to stop this bacchanalia, the guy only cheered up slightly, which did not stand out particularly against the background of his usual state. Only the too bright shine of the eyes betrayed the not entirely sober state of their owner. Okay. The blonde relaxed in his chair. I always dreamed of doing this. What? Get drunk? Gathering his strength, the hermit knocked back another glass. In some way, Naruto said with sadness in his voice. Everything is complicated. No, it doesn't matter. Experience told the Sannin that this, on the contrary, was very important, but the absent look of his drinking companion did not allow him to find out the reason. Suddenly the guy seemed to wake up from a trance. Let's drink to our friends and comrades who gave their lives so that we can continue our journey. Who went beyond the brink to save their loved ones and friends. For real heroes. In complete silence, Jiraiya sipped his glass. Their silence was interrupted by the noisy trill of music from the festival. Shall we go have some fun? Naruto suddenly suggested, rising from his seat. Glancing around the half-empty bar, Jiraiya also stood up. Just no noodles. I'm already sick of her. But, the blonde began. Or I'm not going anywhere. The Sannin finished gloomily. Okay. The guy gave up. No more ramen today. I promise. As I understand it, the key word here is, today? Asked the hermit. Otherwise. Naruto smiled mischievously. Their evening was just beginning. Chapter 3. Jiraiya, Part 3. Oh, what a chick! Jiraiya happily jumped on the spot. Oh, what shapes! I hate watching this, Naruto commented. You don't understand anything. The Sannin waved his hand at him. I understand everything, and this only makes it worse. The guy gloomily shared his thoughts. We went to have fun. Then why have we been spying on women for 2 hours now? I'm bored. You don't understand anything. The hermit hissed at him. And be quiet here. I'm freaking out being here. The blonde screamed in despair. You need to know moderation in everything. You can look at 3 things forever: fire, water, and SI. I'll now destroy this wall and disappear. Naruto didn't finish listening to the Sannin. You won't dare. Jiraiya turned pale, imagining another deadly race with a dozen angry women. Take a chance. The guy's anticipatory smile did not promise anything good for the hermit. After considering all the possible options, remembering the last prank and assessing his chances of a peaceful evening, Jiraiya stood up with a creak. You won, boy. The hermit displeasedly turned away from the women's baths. What do you propose to do? Look, they sell masks there. You're not a child anymore. The look of a baby whose lollipop was taken away. Well, okay, let's go have a look. Naruto happily grabbed the hermit by the hand and brazenly dragged him to the counter with masks, not paying attention to his resistance. At the rack he began to meticulously examine the assortment. Here. Jiraiya handed him a fox mask with 3 symmetrical stripes, like the one on the blonde's face. Fox? The guy smiled. How interesting. I'll take it. He paid for the purchase and immediately put it on his head. What do you think? He twirled in front of the Sannin. Shameless, cunning little fox. Jiraiya couldn't help but smile in response to the dazzling smile that appeared on Naruto's face. The blonde even jumped with pleasure and laughed cheerfully. Since ramen is banned today, let's go eat takoyaki? He suggested, finally calming down. Okay. The Sannin agreed. There was literally inexhaustible energy emanating from the guy, which charged everyone around him with optimism. Jiraiya couldn't resist her either. Naruto rushed towards the stall, but miscalculating his speed, he crashed into a bully passing by. "Aren't you crazy?" The downed man looked angrily at the blonde. "Sorry," Naruto apologized. "Sorry, you won't be full, drive away the loot." The big man stood up and hovered over him with his arm outstretched. "What? Money, I say, go. Maybe we can go our separate ways peacefully?" Jiraiya put his hand on Naruto's shoulder, who was preparing to roll the bull into the ground. "Do the Konoha ninja consider themselves to be in charge here? You have no power here, it belongs to us." The man grabbed a woman passing by and, without holding back, hit her in the stomach. "This city belongs to the fallen gang. You are not here." The blonde's blow did not allow him to finish his sentence, and he flew into the nearest wall. Passers-by hastily fled from the street. "How dare you, freak!" The big guy coughed up blood. "Do you even know who you raised your hand to?" "I somehow," Naruto shrugged. "But if you attack civilians again, we'll see," the man promised threateningly. "You won't live, boy. Let's go back to our room." And Jiraiya forcibly dragged the angry blonde away. But it didn't end there. Around midnight, fires started in the city. "You idiot who raised his hand against the head's brother, if you don't show up at our base with change by morning, we'll burn this city to hell," shouted the heralds on the streets of the city. At this time, Naruto was nervously walking around the room. "It's my fault, I have to go. What will you achieve with this? We cannot use force in this territory. It does not belong to us, and shinobi belonging to other hidden villages cannot start a showdown here without consequences in the political arena. Soon the people responsible for the city will come here and deal with these bandits." The hermit tried to dissuade the blonde from his idea. "If there's anything left of the city left by then," Naruto said gloomily. "Decided to play hero?" Jiraiya shook the guy. "Wake up, you won't achieve anything with this stupid act." However, the blonde was adamant. "I will not give up on my nindo." He clenched his hands into fists. "I made a promise, and nothing will stop me, not even you." And turning around, he walked towards the exit of the room. "Stubborn sheep." The hermit caught the guy by the sleeve. "Why do you need to get involved in this? Should I just sit and watch these people suffer?" Naruto shouted, pulling his hand out of the Sanin's grip. "This is your solution, indifference?" Jiraiya was slightly taken aback by such pressure from the blonde, but did not give up his attempts to persuade him. "Do you even understand where we are? We are not on our territory now, and by destroying these bandits, you will free the hands of other countries." "If I had not told you off then," he tried again. "I don't care," the guy muttered, and turning away, headed towards the exit. "And I would rather be killed by indifference than by these scum." The Sannin froze, digesting what Naruto had said. Fool, what does he want to achieve with these actions? He will not be able to fix this world. Jiraiya already tried, but failed. Why save those who don't want to be saved? A stubborn ass, an incorrigible idiot. This is absolute madness. Fool. And I'm an old fool who will follow him. The toad hermit muttered dully and followed the stubborn blonde. The bandits turned out to be far from simple opponents, given the very limited arsenal of techniques that Jiraiya could use in order not to be recognized. Most of them were hired B and C rank nuke-nin, proficient in a decent number of different ninjutsu. Of course, the Sannin could easily defeat them all, but it would take a lot of time. Therefore, Naruto was left to his own devices while the hermit cleared the rear. However, knowing even a small part of the blonde's strength, Jiraiya had no doubt that he could cope quite well without him. He was quite far from the epicenter, but still felt a sudden powerful surge of natural chakra. Who could use it? There were a very small number of people in the world capable of using Sen chakra, and Jiraiya knew almost all of them by sight. The hermit hurried to the scene before the mysterious shinobi disappeared. And he saw him. Naruto towered over the bodies of his defeated enemies. The fox mask they had recently purchased made it difficult to see his face, but the Sannin was absolutely sure that the blonde was in hermit mode or a similar state. It is not surprising that the guy did not consider these bandits worthy opponents, having such a trump card up his sleeve. Today I simply deprived you of any opportunity to use chakra. He apparently did not consider broken bones and other injuries a punishment. If I hear about you again, don't expect mercy. Suddenly, one of the downed shinobi stood up and, with a kunai at the ready, rushed at Naruto. The guy, who did not expect this, only managed to put his palm up to meet the blow. Blood poured onto the ground. And it's all? The blonde grinned and easily broke his opponent's chest. But I warned you. He raised his hand and everyone saw how the wound on the guy's hand was healing right before their eyes. People like you will never kill me. Staggering, the blonde approached the frozen hermit. Will you take me to the room? Naruto swayed slightly. I overdid it a little. And the body, deprived of control, fell straight into the hands of the Sannin. What should I do with you? Jiraiya asked tiredly. Laying the still unconscious guy on the bed, Jiraiya ran his hand through the blonde's tangled hair in a fatherly manner and sighed heavily for the umpteenth time that night. What did he know about Naruto? The absence of a past, an appearance identical to the fourth Hokage, possession of natural chakra, enhanced regeneration, and a great reluctance to answer questions. One conclusion suggested itself: Orochimaru. Chapter 4. Jiraiya, Part 4. Due to the events of last night, Jiraiya and Naruto had to suddenly leave the city. But news of the defeat of the gang had already leaked to the masses, and as soon as they left the hotel, they were surrounded by rescued people. The hermit, who now least of all needed publicity, shook hands with the residents of the city with a forced smile. The blonde felt in his element and happily accepted gratitude, not forgetting to smile dazzlingly at everyone. Finally, the Sannin could not stand it and, picking up the guy, was transported outside the city. Only this was not enough for me. Jiraiya already felt a cold tingling of intuition, foreshadowing future troubles. Minato clearly will not approve of this. What's wrong with the fact that we helped these people? Naruto tilted his head questioningly. Everything is bad, the hermit admitted sadly. In 3 months there will be a Kage Congress, and here we are creating an international conflict. But formally, we invaded their territory and became the instigators of the clash. I'm quite famous, and everyone will blame it on me, and therefore on the orders of the Hokage, because I obey only him. And still we did the right thing, the guy told him firmly. And I don't consider my actions a mistake. However, the consequences, everything will be fine, I'll take care of it. Naruto answered him nonchalantly. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. Whoever trained Naruto to be a spy clearly knew what he was doing. This was visible, especially in some mechanical gestures, which such a professional as Jiraiya could not help but notice. His ability to perfectly hide chakra alone was worth it. Probably Orochimaru was preparing him to infiltrate Konoha. The blonde's hinge turned out to be excellent. The Sannin learned this from his own experience during another joke of this blue-eyed demon, and he most likely had to replace the ninja whose hideout was lying in his backpack. Looks like someone returning from a mission. Or was he planning to infiltrate with the Sannin, and this was all a brilliantly played-out scenario? Or has Naruto escaped from Orochimaru and is looking for his protection? Arg! Jiraiya shouted, jumping away from the guy who had just hit him on the back with all his might. What are you doing? Mosquitoes? The blonde shrugged. Killed 2 with 1 blow. I could have just said it. The hermit winced from unpleasant sensations. And I said it, but you're so lost in thought. Naruto sighed sadly. By the way, they are smeared all over your cloak. I'll kill the brat. The Sannin growled. You're too old for this. The blonde mockingly stuck his tongue out at him. I have enough strength to kick the ass of one impudent asshole. Jiraiya tried to grab the guy, but he dodged him, laughing. You are not yet mature enough to be arrogant to elders. Ha, yes, I'm almost taller than you. You stand even higher on the hill, look, and you will be taller than me. Maybe your intelligence will increase at the same time. It's not for an old pervert who only has enough for vulgar magazines to judge me. Naruto continued to have fun, still playing catch-up with the hermit. In this regard, I am a man in the prime of his life, the Sannin proudly announced. And I'm not just a pervert. I'm a super pervert. Walking around Konoha naked, scaring women with your privates? The blonde asked innocently. Sooner or later you'll get me for your antics, Jiraiya threatened, showing the irrepressible guy a fist of vengeance. Hope, hope! And Naruto merrily rushed forward. Whether the hermit wanted to admit it or not, Naruto gave him back his thirst for life every day. The blonde's inexplicable optimism looked rather strange in the shinobi world saturated with death and constant war. At the same time, he was a strong individual with unclear abilities. It would be tempting to get ninja of this kind into the Konoha military forces, and to have him as an enemy. With his tenacity, extraordinary thinking, and unknown potential? No, that's not an option. He needed to talk to Minato about this. I wonder how he will react to the appearance of his clone? In the meantime, we can prepare the ground. Naruto, don't you want to become part of Konoha? Jiraiya suddenly asked a question. I never thought about it, the blonde admitted. It will be quite difficult for an outsider to do this. And I, most likely, will not be trusted among the locals, and again live, fearing every second for my life. No, thank you. You can be given protection. Do you believe in this yourself? I don't really care. The Sannin raised his hands in defeat. Okay, but what do you want in that case? The guy looked thoughtfully at the sky, and then straight into Jiraiya's eyes. I need time. I have to decide what I will do next, now that my old life is over and I have no way of getting it back. And what are your ideas about this? Well, I'm going to eat some ramen right now. They stayed at a small hotel under false names. The hermit never found out the blonde's real name, but oddly enough, it seemed to him that Naruto was the perfect name for this guy. Like a hero who stepped out of the pages of his book. Unless, of course, this is just another mask. Naruto left to replenish his supplies. Jiraiya's noodles were already creaking in his teeth. All normal food had mysteriously disappeared in an unknown direction. Maybe he should also play a prank on the blonde and destroy this demonic food? But then he may not survive the next prank of the restless guy. However, it would be worth it. A malicious laugh came from the room. Lost in thinking about his villainous plans to destroy the ramen, Jiraiya did not immediately notice the approach of one rather strong source of chakra. But even those moments were enough for him to go into combat mode. Yenbyu of Konoha? The Sannin was surprised by the appearance of a ninja dressed in black with a mask characteristic of them, but was in no hurry to relax. What do you owe? The Hokage ordered you to immediately contact him. A familiar kunai with the seal of his student appeared in front of the hermit. Please do this immediately. And the messenger disappeared, as if he had never existed. Jiraiya looked at the remaining object in front of him in bewilderment. What could have compelled Minato to send him that kunai? Why didn't he contact him through the toads? Could this be a trap? The Sannin already had the Horatian seal, why send a new one? He carefully examined the kunai that was delivered to him. A standard seal with Minato's chakra imprint without any corrections. But why? It is clear that the Hokage could not leave Konoha for a long time without serious reasons, but Minato could use the already existing seal. Unless, of course. Illuminated by a hunch, Jiraiya took out his seal from one of his pockets. Yes, just as he thought. One line in the seal was so distorted that it was impossible to use it. But who could do this? Naruto? Or someone else? Having found no reason preventing him, the Sannin nevertheless activated the seal, having previously prepared for any outcome. But nothing supernatural happened, except for the fourth Hokage appearing in a yellow flash. Sensei, he greeted Jiraiya. Chapter 5. Tsunade. Sensei. The fourth Hokage exhaled with visible relief. You are alive, don't bury me ahead of time. Jiraiya patted Minato on the shoulder. But you've completely blossomed, as I can see. Indeed, the man was a pitiful sight, pale as a ghost, with matted hair and red eyes from lack of sleep. He looked like a man who had been awake for at least a week, eating only coffee. It's a mess at work. Minato smiled heavily and sank onto the bed with a sigh. Especially in light of recent events, I think it's worth putting up a barrier before we start discussing classified information. Jiraiya noted, looking disapprovingly at his former student. And you should take a break. There's no time for that now. The fourth took a seal from a secret pocket in his cloak and activated it. Extraneous noise immediately disappeared from the room. So, what's going on? The hermit sat down opposite the blonde with a serious expression on his face. Considering Minato's condition, things weren't going well in Konoha. We received news from our spies that an assassination attempt is being prepared on the Sanins, the Hokage finally said. Why wasn't I notified? Firstly, the report arrived too late. It's too late. Minato looked out the window with a frown. And I'm afraid that someone higher up in the village is involved in this. An audit is being carried out, and its preliminary results do not please me. The ANBU only have time to arrest new suspects. Many dark sins are coming to light, but the person responsible for the stitching has still not been found. Do you need my help? No, now you are needed elsewhere. The blonde shook his head. The second reason is that I could not contact you. Summoning is unstable, the Horatian seal has been disabled, and other communication channels have been eliminated. I assumed the worst. Fortunately, your recent prank allowed us to find you. Was there an assassination attempt on me specifically? Some detail, a very important detail, eluded the hermit. I don't know, Minato answered after a pause. Tsunade is also at risk, but Tsunade. Jiraiya jumped out of bed and began to pace around the room impatiently. Where was she last seen? A week ago, she was spotted in the country of hot springs. So, I can get there within 24 hours, if without stops. I have already sent a team to search for her, just like yours. The fourth Hokage sighed tiredly. But I can't dissuade you, can I? If the assassination attempt was not prepared for me, then there is only one option left. Perhaps the plan was to eliminate us one by one, but they wouldn't stand a chance against the two of us. I assumed so. Minato rose from the bed and extended his hand to Jiraiya. Jiraiya-sensei, I will move us to the land of hot springs. Attentive blue eyes watched what was happening in the room through the window. As the fourth Hokage and Jiraiya disappeared in a yellow flash, the unnoticed spy disappeared in a puff of smoke. Finding her missing teammate proved to be an extremely difficult task, especially considering the short deadline, which could have resulted in her death. But he can handle it, and he has no other choice, the hermit convinced himself. There had been attempts to kill them before, but Minato wouldn't have warned him unless the matter was extremely important. Who could have planned such an operation remained a mystery to the Sannin. Perhaps he did not notice the impending assassination attempt, or an unpredictable factor intervened? Naruto. Is it possible to? Jiraiya didn't know if the blonde could outright defeat him, but the guy shouldn't be underestimated. No matter whose supporter he is. Jiraiya did not have time to warn him about his unexpected departure, but he had no doubt that he would find him sooner or later. With these thoughts, he went to the place where Tsunade was last seen. She knew she was doomed. And she understood that she was now a trap for Jiraiya. If she had any strength left, she would have committed suicide rather than cause the death of another precious friend. She prayed to every known god that Jiraiya would not fall for the bait in her face. But there was little chance of this, knowing the nature of the hermit. If she could speak, she would have warned him of the death trap. If she could move, she would destroy the bastard who lured her here. If she weren't so self-confident and reckless. Don't be afraid, you will become one of the best dolls in my collection. A shiver ran through her from the touch of cold metal. Tsunade! Jiraiya shouted, seeing a blonde sitting in the shadows, who had a panicked expression on her face at the sight of the hermit. But he was prevented from getting to her by dozens of shadows that blocked his path. Not so fast, said a voice behind this small army and commanded. Kill him. However, Jiraiya was ready and the attack was unsuccessful. Dolls. Weapons with poison. This is certainly not bad, but underestimate one of the legendary Sanins," said the hermit, dodging a hail of blows. "Who sent you?" "I don't think it matters, because you won't survive this night," said the figure wrapped in a black cloak who controlled all the dolls. "Now that your former companion is unable to help you, what does this mean?" Jiraiya asked, going into hermit mode. His opponent chuckled. "So you weren't aware? How many times has he saved you? 1, 2, or maybe 5. You prevented poisoning, got you out of an ambush, fought off 2 attacks, but your luck has come to an end. No one will interfere with my plans anymore." Thousands of thoughts raced through Jiraiya's head. The puzzle pieces finally fell into place. Naruto's numerous absences. Missing food supplies. The actions that seemed strange to him now made sense. But why did he protect him? This is a question he will soon ask him, if Jiraiya is right about the source of natural chakra approaching the battle site. He had to admit, the puppeteer was not the easiest opponent. Perhaps if Jiraiya had been weakened, he would have defeated him. But today fate was on the side of the hermit. "You lost," he said, raising his hand over the defeated enemy for the final blow. "Yes, you may have won now, but the minimum plan will still be fulfilled." A voice came from the broken puppet. "Tsunade!" Jiraiya shouted. The doll hovering over the blonde sprang into action. She closed her eyes, preparing to take the attack. But death never came. Opening her eyes, she saw an unfamiliar guy in front of her, blocking her from being hit. Heroes always appear at the very last moment. A blue ball of chakra appeared in the blonde's hand. "Rinnegan!" The puppet, torn into pieces, flew to the side. "Bachan, a young and beautiful woman like you shouldn't cry." Naruto wiped the tears from Tsunade's face and freed her from the chains. "Who are you?" she asked, stretching her legs that were numb from prolonged immobilization. "You can call me Naruto. I'm here with Jiraiya." He helped her up. "The puppet master should be nearby. We need to find him. He was prevented from finishing his sentence by a sudden cough of blood. Let me examine the wound." She extended her hand to Naruto, but he pushed her away. "I'll be fine, I need to find the puppeteer." Suddenly he was overcome by a spasm and, not expecting this, the blonde fell to his knees. The spear was poisoned. Without ceremony, Tsunade laid the guy on the ground and tore the t-shirt that was interfering with the inspection of the wound. The spear pierced right through Naruto's shoulder, missing any important organs. Lucky, but the rest of the situation was much worse. The bleeding did not stop, and the Senichi's attempts to heal the wound did not bring visible results. The poison prevents the use of chakra for tissue regeneration, Tsunade realized. If so, they don't have much time. He won't last long in such conditions. "Jiraiya, help me! We need to get him to the hospital immediately," she screamed when she saw the toad Sannin approaching them. "Naruto-kun!" Tsunade's overly affectionate voice came from behind the blonde. He took a deep breath and slowly turned around. "Yes? What are you doing here when you should be on bed rest?" Looking for a toilet?" For support, he leaned against the wall and, unnoticed by himself, began to gradually slide down it. "At the exit from the hospital?" Tsunade asked incredulously, and suddenly she noticed an increasing red stain on the blonde's shirt. "Your wound has opened again." "It's nothing." His eyes were stuck together, but he remained conscious through sheer willpower. "I need to go out. You're going back to your room right now." "But I'm completely fine," Naruto muttered with the last of his strength. "Okay." And he collapsed unconscious. "One more attempt to escape, and I will tie him to the bed," the Sannin promised herself. "Ero Sennin, save me!" Naruto whined, chained to the bed. "They want to heal me to death. I'm sure this will benefit you." Looking at the guy who couldn't lift a finger was simply unimaginably pleasant. "Well, please." The blonde made a face, which, apparently, was supposed to evoke sympathy for him, but in the hermit it only caused uncontrollable laughter. "I'm going crazy here. It's only the second day." Jiraiya still couldn't control himself, and a wide smile broke out on his face. 5 more days and you will be released." Naruto let out a heartbreaking groan. Are you visiting a student? Tsunade asked, entering the room. This brat has already tried to escape from here 5 times. I've already recovered. The blonde started the barrel organ in a new way. Do you want me to run 10 laps around the hospital? Lie down. The Sannin ordered, and to convince him, showed him her fist, reinforced with chakra. Or you will spend another month here. I hate you, Naruto muttered. So that I end up in the hospital again. Jiraiya just grinned. And justice was found for the restless blonde. Chapter 6. Kushina, Part 1. I received the test results. Tsunade carefully folded all the leaves together. And? Jiraiya asked impatiently. Naruto is Minato's son, the blonde announced without delay. Son? But I didn't immediately believe it either. Tsunade sighed tiredly. However, repeated checks gave the same result. Your Naruto is definitely the son of the 4th Hokage. Ha! The hermit clenched his fists and looked with fury at the papers in the hands of the medic. Orochimaru. To laugh at our memory like that. Unforgivable. We need to decide what to do with Minato's son who appeared out of nowhere. The doctor noted. We don't know his goals or his plans. And in view of the information that has been revealed, he can make a lot of noise. I'll take charge of Naruto. Jiraiya outwardly calmed down, but in his eyes one could see a slowly burning flame of rage. He's strong, and it's not safe to bring him to Konoha now. I have a request for you. Good morning, greeted the sick Jiraiya, who was toiling from idleness. Morning, Naruto muttered gloomily. Why are you so gloomy? Today is the day of discharge? You didn't say we were going to Konoha. Who told you this? Tsunade-bie-chan. Tsunade? Yes, she decided to return to the village for safety reasons. And we received a mission to escort the ambassador to the village hidden in the sand. Huh! And don't call her Bie-chan anymore unless you want to stay in the hospital indefinitely. She treats me like a child. You are the child. Jiraiya shrugged. Ero Sennin. Naruto hissed. So, what about this mission to Suna? Are we heading out now? It's been a while since I've been to the desert. Have you been there? The Sannin asked. I've been in a similar place. The blonde answered vaguely, hesitating, and immediately changed the uncomfortable topic. But sending a Sannin as support is not too much? Recent events suggest that we have underestimated our enemies. We need to make sure that there will be no trouble from Suna. That is, we are going to spy. We are going to ensure the safety of the delegation. The hermit corrected him. What is my role? I'm not a Konoha shinobi. Officially, you will be considered my student. Ha! But the rest don't need to know the details. Only 3 people are privy to the details, me, you, and Tsunade. Naruto wanted to say something, but Jiraiya continued. The fewer people know about you, the better. We will solve other problems as they arise. Unexpectedly, the blonde remarked, looking at his palms. You won't get into trouble because of me? Hey! Jiraiya lightly shook the guy by the shoulders, forcing him to look into his eyes. Trust me more. Who do you think I am? The door that opened did not allow the blonde to answer. Are you going to chat here for a long time? It's time to go. Tsunade's cheerful voice came from the threshold. She rarely allowed herself to eat ramen, because this dish was always accompanied by unpleasant memories. It would seem that so many years had passed, but the emotional wounds, although smoothed out over time, still made themselves felt. The first years were especially difficult. The loss of a child, deprivation of the opportunity to have children. She was convinced that staying alive after extracting the bijou was already a miracle, but only the support of her loved ones, and the opportunity that appeared afterward to take care of the tiny creature, did not allow her to break free and end this damned existence. Yes, she probably died that day. Madam, will you place an order? The waitress's voice brought her back to reality. Oh yes, she ran her eyes over the menu. I'll have 2 servings of ramen with salt. The girl retreated to the kitchen, and the red-haired woman sighed sadly for the umpteenth time. Be strong, be strong. How many times did she repeat these words to herself? Friends sometimes noticed her forced smiles and false joy, but they could not do anything about it. It was easier for Minato. He threw himself into his work, and sometimes it seemed to her that he had forgotten about their personal tragedy. Of course, this was not so, she told herself, watching with what cruelty he destroyed the mannequins on their training ground, reproaching herself for these treacherous thoughts when she saw with what tension he looked at the closed nursery. She just endured the loss worse than he. Sorry for the wait. The waitress again interrupted the flow of self-flagellation. Your order. She lowered 2 cups of ramen in front of her. Thank you. Kushina smiled and turned to the window again. If you write a wish on a card and hang it on the bamboo, it will certainly come true. The girl chirped over her. What? She asked again. This is a tradition, explained the waitress. Many people's wishes come true. Within the limits of the possible, of course. She smiled cheerfully and flew off to another table. Wish? What is she dreaming about? So that the relatives are alive and healthy. And she doesn't need more. Just not to lose anyone close to you. It is most important. She hung her red card next to the bright orange one that said, Come home. In bold handwriting, Chapter 7. Kushina, Part 2. Jiraiya had to admit that he didn't understand Naruto at all. His mood swings due to random words, growing tension when he was reminded of the past, willingness to do crazy things to save strangers. He was confused by the occasional sadness in the blonde's blue eyes when he looked at him. To be honest, Jiraiya didn't know what was going on, but every day Naruto's optimism seemed more and more feigned to him. Where did he want to return so much, and why couldn't he do it? Why didn't the blonde leave him and protect him from the shadows? Was he really related to Orochimaru? Many questions, few answers. They parted ways with Tsunade, who headed to Konoha. She should have cleared up the situation with Naruto while she was there, since the blonde didn't want to inject himself. Jiraiya completely trusted her, and could be sure that everything would be done in the best possible way, despite the possible difficulties that would undoubtedly arise. And the sooner they find out the truth, the more likely it is that everything will end well. Where was this blonde misfortune now? After news of the assassination attempts on his person, Naruto's absences began to look even more suspicious, especially when he went missing for the night. The guy never answered him why he hid such important things from the hermit. Did he think that he was the reason for these attacks, or did it become a kind of dictate of the soul? The blonde was silent, as if he had filled his mouth with water. Maybe Jiraiya is too old to uncover conspiracies of this magnitude? It's not for nothing that Naruto treats him like a fragile figurine, ready to crumble into pieces at any moment. The rain hasn't stopped for the 3rd day. Kushina shrugged her shoulders, feeling the unpleasant dampness that enveloped her every time she went outside. Leaving the sleeping escort at the hotel, only this formalist was missing for her, she finally broke out of the walls pressing on her psyche. To her great regret, the umbrella remained in the room, and the last thing she wanted was to return to the guard who had bored her to the point of colic. It's hard being the Hokage's wife. It must be said that walking in the rain without an umbrella was not the best idea, as she realized in the next half hour. Especially on the eve of negotiations. Stop hiding! She suddenly turned around and furiously looked around the empty street. I know you've been following me for at least 2 blocks. If you are not the enemy, then show yourself! Only the sound of rain was her answer. If you don't want to do it the good way. Kushina began to concentrate chakra for an instant attack. Then we'll do it the bad way. Calm down, said a quiet voice behind her. The woman with magnificent scarlet hair, without hesitating for a second, turned around and without hesitation entangled chains around the place where the stranger, wrapped in a gray cloak, had recently stood. I just want to talk. The young man raised his hands as a sign of goodwill, never ceasing to dodge Kushina's attacks. Who sent you? She couldn't believe her eyes. It seemed as if the stranger was teleporting from one place to another, his movements were so fast. But this was impossible. So that she would be inferior to someone other than Minato in speed. Nobody. I'm here on my own initiative. What happened? Why is she haunted by the feeling that she is simply being played with? I need your help. The stranger continued. Help? Kushina stopped, trying to predict her enemy's plan, but he remained motionless. My help? The stranger simply nodded. She could not see his eyes from under the hood, and it seemed to her more and more that she was not talking to a living person, but to an empty place. And this feeling grew stronger every moment, and I should believe it? Kushina smiled wryly, not relaxing for a second. I have no doubt you know who I am. I know. The guy confirmed with a nod. But I didn't come to fight. Then why? What do you need? She demanded an answer, trying to catch as many details as possible in case she had to continue the fight. Maybe we should move to a warm and dry place first? The stranger suggested. And it's normal here. Apchi. Kushina blushed embarrassedly. I'll wait in the restaurant, further down the street. And he disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Ha! The woman squatted down, trying to regain her inner balance. What happened now? Who was this guy? Is it worth taking the risk and going to meet him? Call for reinforcements? But can even a team of jonin cope with this man? Her intuition, which had saved her life more than once, said that he was not a danger to her, but common sense said the opposite. And what should she do? Chapter 8. Kushina, Part 3, 10 minutes to get yourself ready. Kushina straightened up, raised her head, a determined light lit up in her eyes. The promise not to run away from problems is still not forgotten. All or nothing. She has already made her bet. Kushina straightened her clothes and mentally apologized to Minato for her irresponsibility and overconfidence. But oddly enough, there was no feeling of fear. However, there was no point in relaxing. Experienced assassins also skillfully hid their intention to kill, and it was not someone else's life that was at stake, but hers. There was only one cafe looming ahead, open during the tourist season that had ended. Having once again internally prepared for any outcome, she went inside. But her entrance was not accompanied by a blast wave or other unexpected attack, she was only doused with warm air. It was much warmer inside than outside, and this immediately raised her mood a couple of points up. Kushina brushed away the hair that had stuck to her face due to the rain and gratefully accepted the towel from the helpful waitress. Wiping her face, she carefully looked around the room, but for some reason the hidden enemies were in no hurry to attack her. Except for the appetizing aroma of ramen assaulting her sensitive nasal receptors. I took the liberty and ordered you ramen. The stranger greeted her, sitting at the table to her right. I hope you don't mind? Well, for what purpose did you invite me here? Kushina asked, sitting down opposite him. Do you really think that hot meat broth with these delicious noodles and pieces of meat that melt in your mouth, seasoned with these intoxicating spices, will soften me? My good friend thinks so. The stranger interrupted her monologue of a hungry man. I won't say that I completely agree with him, but on some issues he is quite insightful. I hope he's not poisoned. Kushina smiled politely. With such a smile she usually destroyed her opponents. But you still haven't answered my question. Why am I here? If I tell you, I need your participation in one matter. The aura of death did not affect her interlocutor in any way, it even seemed to her that he was smiling in the shadow of his hood. Will you believe me? Of course. She paused. No, it didn't work. The guy leaned back, clasping his hands in front of him. In this case, I can offer a mutually beneficial exchange. I'm afraid I don't understand you. And that was the absolute truth. Who is this man? What exactly does he want? And what consequences could their union have? I'm interested in space-time movements, he said matter-of-factly. Ha, maybe even the post of Hokage in addition? That would be nice. Plates of freshly prepared ramen were placed in front of them. Unfortunately, this is not in my competence. Kushina broke her chopsticks. Even if I fully possessed this knowledge, I would hardly discuss it with outsiders. Especially with those who haven't even introduced themselves. Eh? The guy drawled. Oh, exactly. I forgot. He extended his hand to her. Friend of Konoha. Friend. Konoha? Kushina raised her eyebrows sarcastically. If this is a joke, then it is clearly not original. I wouldn't joke about this. The guy, without waiting for a response handshake, lowered his hand. Maybe as a sign of goodwill, I'll tell you a story? About a boy in whom a demon was sealed. But this is absolutely not funny. Before the guy had time to finish his sentence, the sharp blade of the kunai was dangerously close to his neck. What do you know? Maybe we should eat first? Suggested the self-proclaimed friend, maintaining absolute calm. The ramen is getting cold. Shadow clone? Kushina noted distantly when the enemy disappeared in a puff of smoke after her blow. Where from? How scary? No, really scary. A voice came from behind her. Turning around, she saw her interlocutor sitting peacefully in a nearby place, but I really came with peaceful intentions. She was silent, not taking her eyes off him, because she could not intercept his gaze. Genjutsu, Kushina realized. I don't want to cause unnecessary pain. The guy grabbed her hands in his. But it looks like I won't have any other choice. Oddly enough, she did not want to break free from his grip. This is Genjutsu, her consciousness screamed, but even the desire to stop it was suppressed by something from within. The moment was interrupted by screams coming from the street. Kushina shook her head, trying to wake up from this strange dream, and hurried to free her hands. Perhaps now is not the best time for our conversation. The guy suddenly stood up, warily peering out the window. What are you? Kushina began, but an unexpected wave of weakness prevented her from finishing. She shook her head, trying to come to her senses, but to no avail. We'll come back to this next time, was the last thing she heard before consciousness left her. Anxious anticipation. To spend so much time in captivity of the monster contained within him, his own powerlessness and indifference to his fate. His interlocutor gave him that ray of hope that could pull him out of the dark hole of his soul. But how long will he have to wait for the promised savior? Isn't it time to finish everything with your own hands? Change at least one thing in your own life? No, he promised. He vowed to wait for him. Uzumaki Naruto. Chapter 9. Neji. No one in their right mind could call Neji a superstitious person. Hyuga, who had earned the title of Jonin, looked down with one glance at anyone who dared to mention in front of him about his slight hobby of fortune-telling. Among his comrades, he even acquired the nickname, Harbinger of Death, since Neji tried with all his might to bring any prophecy, especially concerning the fate of enemies, to life. And given the fact that among his generation he was considered a genius, Neji instinctively felt approaching troubles. All the signs spoke of this, 4 fours falling in a row, bad dreams haunting him, harbingers of big troubles that caught his eye every now and then, whispering to him to prepare his grave in advance, just in case. But the urgent mission issued by the Hokage did not allow him to sneak away on a much-needed vacation at that moment. Accompany a diplomatic delegation. Refusal is unacceptable. 2 hours to get ready. Free, Jonin Hyuga Neji. It's fate. He sighed once again, placing another first aid kit for emergency medical care into the scroll. I should grab a couple more packs of bandages just in case. He was getting ready as if he were going to war. Perhaps there weren't so many warnings and harbingers of trouble even before his first S-rank mission. Again, no one could call Neji superstitious, simply for fear of ending up in the hospital for an unlimited time, but those who had at least once been on a mission with him took the Jonins, oddities, much more seriously after him. However, one thing was always true: if he met Uzumaki Kushina before a mission, then something terrible was sure to await him. Will you once again have to lie on your deathbed or almost lose one of your limbs, find yourself surrounded by outnumbered enemies, or discover the betrayal of your partner? Meeting this woman never brought him anything good. Her scarlet hair was like a warning signal: death awaits you. What could await him on a mission with this walking harbinger of great trouble? Neji was afraid to make a wish. Oddly enough, nothing dangerous happened on the way to their first stop. Neji, worked up to the limit, checked every 500 meters for the presence of an ambush with the Byakugan, but the result was always negative. In the city they were supposed to meet with an escort, but instead of relief, he only experienced increasing paranoia. In Konoha, private arrests are taking place, the clans are locked in their territories, and the Hokage is sending his wife to an unknown place and for an unknown purpose. It seems that not everything was so simple with this task. Yes, he is one of the strongest jounin of the village, practically an ANBU, but is his strength enough for this mission? He was to find out the answer to this question in the near future. The first thing he realized when he woke up was the disappearance of the object of his protection, namely Uzumaki Kushina. A quick inspection of the room showed that she left of her own free will. Or that she was lured out while he was sleeping. Or that they were drugged, and then they simply carried her out. Or, scanning the area with the Byakugan did not allow it to be detected. What to do? One could forget about admission to ANBU, one could forget about any promotion after such a failure. Although he would soon have to retrain as a genin or, rather, even as a disabled person. We must not forget whose wife it was. There was little light in the room, but she could see her tied hands. The chakra was not felt at all, but if it were not there at all, she would already be dead. An unknown technique or seal, the woman concluded. Apparently, she was still kidnapped, but they might not have known about her little escort. Hey, furry ass, come out! Kushina screamed in her subconscious, but the answer was silence. And this opportunity was blocked by an unknown thief. All her attempts to overcome this invisible barrier were in vain. Well-prepared creatures, she thought, returning to a prone position. Hope remained only in Minato's secret seal, with which he could always find her. It would be nice to remember exactly how she ended up here. The last hours before the abduction were as if covered in fog. It was raining. I see you've already woken up, said a strangely familiar voice, interrupting her thoughts. Ero-sennin? What? Jiraiya responded, looking up from writing a new masterpiece in the field of literature. Oh, you're already responding. My career in the field of training is still possible. Naruto dodged the kick, but in order to avoid spilling the contents of his cup, he had to perform a horizontal fall maneuver to the floor. Saved. Clown. The Sannin commented briefly. As it is, the blonde shrugged, remaining on the ground. I advise you to bend down too. 4. The sound of cutting air did not allow him to finish his sentence. Jiraiya definitely didn't expect this man to appear.